Imagine arriving in a new world with nothing, no wealth, no family power, no safety net, and rising to shape the financial system, political structure, and global destiny of a nation that did not yet exist. Imagine surviving poverty, hurricanes, war, scandal, and political hatred, yet still leaving behind ideas so powerful that they continue to define governments centuries later. Imagine a man who believed not just in independence, but in building a nation strong enough to survive it. Tonight, we explore the life of one of history's most intense, brilliant, controversial, and influential figures. Welcome to Historical Pulse, where history doesn't just live in textbooks, it breathes. Alexander Hamilton was not born into privilege, safety, or certainty. He was born into chaos on a small Caribbean island, illegitimate, orphaned, poor, and alone. Yet from those unlikely beginnings, he would rise to become the principal architect of America's financial system, one of the authors of its Constitution, the founder of its central government, and one of the sharpest political minds the world has ever seen. He was admired and feared, respected and hated, praised and vilified, often at the same time. His story is not one of quiet progress, but of relentless motion. To understand Hamilton, we must begin far from Philadelphia, far from New York, far from the halls of American power, on the island of Nevis in the British West Indies. Alexander Hamilton was born on January 11, 1755, or 1757. Historians still debate the exact year, to Rachel Fossett and James Hamilton. His parents were not married, and in the social order of the 18th century, this made Hamilton illegitimate, a status that carried lifelong stigma. His father soon abandoned the family. His mother died when Alexander was still a child. Orphaned, impoverished, and vulnerable, Hamilton found himself working as a clerk in a trading company, managing accounts, shipments, and correspondence at an age when most children were still in school, but hardship forged brilliance. Hamilton displayed extraordinary intelligence, ambition, and discipline. He mastered mathematics, commerce, and writing. He absorbed global trade, finance, and politics through first-hand experience. And he developed an intensity, a drive that would define his life. In 1772, when a devastating hurricane struck the Caribbean, Hamilton wrote a vivid letter describing the storm's destruction. The letter was published in a local newspaper and stunned readers with its emotional power and literary maturity. Community leaders, recognizing his genius, raised money to send him to North America for education. Hamilton left the Caribbean not knowing he would never return. He arrived in the American colonies as a poor immigrant teenager, but with a mind already shaped by survival, commerce, and ambition. He enrolled at King's College, now Columbia University, in New York City, where he studied classical literature, philosophy, science, and political theory. But his education was soon interrupted, not by failure, but by revolution. Tensions between Britain and its colonies were reaching a breaking point. Protests, boycotts, riots, and debates filled the streets. Hamilton, though young, quickly immersed himself in political discourse. He began writing pamphlets defending colonial resistance, displaying remarkable command of argument, rhetoric, and philosophy. His writings caught the attention of revolutionary leaders. But Hamilton was not content to write. He wanted action. When war broke out in 1775, Hamilton organized a volunteer militia company while still a student. He trained relentlessly, studied military tactics, and drilled his men with intensity. Soon, His unit distinguished itself in early battles, including the defense of New York. His courage, discipline, and leadership drew the attention of General George Washington. In 1777, Washington appointed Hamilton as his aide-de-camp, his personal staff officer and confidant, effectively making the young immigrant one of the most powerful figures in the Continental Army at just 20 years old. For 4 years, Hamilton served at Washington's side, drafting letters, issuing orders, coordinating logistics, managing intelligence, negotiating with Congress, and navigating military politics. He became Washington's most trusted lieutenant. Through this experience, Hamilton gained unmatched insight into the weaknesses of the revolutionary government. He saw firsthand how Congress lacked power to raise funds, equip troops, enforce laws, or coordinate strategy. He watched soldiers starve while politicians debated. He witnessed states refuse to contribute money or supplies. From this chaos, Hamilton formed one of his core beliefs: a weak central government could not survive. He believed liberty without strength was fragile. He believed independence without unity was temporary. He believed ideals without institutions were powerless. These convictions would define his future, but Hamilton was restless. Though he served Washington loyally, he longed for battlefield command, glory earned through courage rather than paperwork. He requested a field command repeatedly, but Washington hesitated, unwilling to lose his most capable aide. Eventually, tensions flared between them, and Hamilton resigned his staff position in frustration, but fate intervened. In 1781, as the war neared its climax, Washington granted Hamilton command of a light infantry battalion during the siege of Yorktown. Hamilton led a daring nighttime assault on British fortifications, charging under heavy fire, scaling earthworks, capturing enemy positions, in one of the most dramatic episodes of the war. The attack helped secure victory. Hamilton had finally earned battlefield glory. Yorktown effectively ended the American Revolution. Hamilton emerged not only as a war hero, but as a national figure. But victory revealed new dangers. The young nation was united in triumph, but divided in structure. The Articles of Confederation left the federal government weak, underfunded, and powerless to enforce laws or regulate commerce. States printed their own currencies. Trade disputes erupted. Debt piled up. Foreign nations doubted America's stability. Hamilton saw disaster approaching. He feared the Republic would collapse, not from monarchy, but from chaos. He believed the revolution had not been fully won because independence without order was fragile. He believed the nation required structure, stability, and power, not to oppress citizens, but to protect liberty itself. In 1782, Hamilton married Elizabeth Schuyler, daughter of one of New York's most prominent families. The marriage elevated his social standing and connected him to powerful political networks. But Hamilton was never comfortable with privilege. He believed merit, not birth, should determine status. His own life embodied that belief. After the war, Hamilton practiced law, entered politics, and became one of the most vocal advocates for constitutional reform. He called for a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation, but he secretly hoped to replace them entirely. In 1787, Hamilton attended the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia as a delegate from New York. But Hamilton was an outsider. Many delegates distrusted centralized power. Many feared tyranny. Many wanted to preserve strong state authority. Hamilton, by contrast, argued openly for a powerful national government. even suggesting lifelong executive and Senate terms, ideas so radical they stunned the convention. But Hamilton understood compromise. Though many of his proposals were rejected, he supported the final Constitution, believing it far superior to the Articles and flexible enough to evolve. But the Constitution faced enormous opposition. Anti-federalists feared centralized power would destroy liberty. They worried about standing armies, taxation authority, executive dominance, and erosion of states' rights. They demanded a Bill of Rights. The Constitution's ratification was far from guaranteed. Hamilton took action. Along with James Madison and John Jay, he launched one of the most ambitious political persuasion campaigns in history, writing a series of essays defending the Constitution, explaining its principles, and persuading skeptical citizens. These essays, published under the pseudonym Publius, became known as the Federalist Papers. Hamilton wrote 51 of the 85 essays, often working late into the night, fueled by urgency and intensity. He explained separation of powers, checks and balances, federalism, executive authority, judicial independence, taxation, military power, and national unity with unmatched clarity and logic. He argued that liberty required strong institutions, not weak ones. He argued that human nature, flawed and self-interested, required structured government, not idealistic trust. He argued that national survival required energy in government, not paralysis. The Federalist Papers remain among the most influential political writings in history, studied by scholars, judges, lawmakers, and students centuries later. Without Hamilton's pen, the Constitution might never have been ratified. With ratification secured, George Washington became the nation's first president, and he selected Hamilton as the first Secretary of the Treasury. It was one of the most consequential appointments in American history. America in 1789 was financially broken. The national government was buried in debt from the war. The states carried their own debts. The nation lacked credit. Currency was unstable. Foreign investors were skeptical. Trade systems were chaotic. Economic growth was fragile. Hamilton faced a monumental challenge: build a financial system from nothing. And he did, with breathtaking speed, ambition, and brilliance. Within 2 years, Hamilton submitted to Congress a series of reports that would define American capitalism. First, he proposed that the federal government assume the states' war debts, consolidating them into a single national obligation. This would strengthen national unity, establish federal authority, and build public credit by ensuring creditors were paid. Critics, especially Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, opposed the plan, fearing its centralized power and rewarded speculators. Hamilton negotiated fiercely. In a famous compromise, Jefferson and Madison agreed to support debt assumption, and Hamilton agreed to locate the nation's permanent capital along the Potomac River in what would become Washington, D.C. next. Hamilton proposed creating a national bank, the Bank of the United States, to stabilize currency, manage government funds, facilitate loans, and promote economic development. Jefferson argued the Constitution did not authorize such a bank. Hamilton responded with one of the most influential constitutional interpretations in American history, arguing that implied powers allowed Congress to take actions necessary and proper to fulfill its responsibilities. Washington sided with Hamilton. The bank was established. Then Hamilton introduced tariffs to protect domestic industry and generate revenue. He promoted manufacturing, infrastructure, innovation, and commercial growth. He proposed minting a national currency and establishing a standardized monetary system. Within a few years, America transformed from financial chaos into economic stability. Credit soared. Investment increased. Trade expanded. Government bonds became reliable. The United States emerged as a credible economic power. Hamilton had built, almost overnight, one of the world's most advanced financial systems. But with success came opposition. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison believed Hamilton's vision betrayed the revolution. They feared centralized power would lead to monarchy or aristocracy. They believed agriculture, not industry, should define America. They believed states, not federal institutions, should dominate governance. The ideological conflict between Hamilton and Jefferson became one of the defining struggles in American history, shaping political parties, economic policy, constitutional interpretation, and the nation's identity. Hamilton believed government should be strong, energetic, centralized, and capable. Jefferson believed government should be limited, decentralized, and restrained. Hamilton believed elites should guide governance, though he supported merit, not birth. Jefferson believed common citizens should dominate political life. Hamilton believed commerce, industry, and finance would drive national prosperity. Jefferson believed agriculture and rural independence would preserve virtue. Hamilton believed foreign policy should prioritize stability and economic power. Jefferson believed it should prioritize Republican ideals and popular sovereignty. These differences were not personal, though they became personal. They were philosophical, and they still shape American politics today. Hamilton became the most polarizing figure in Washington's cabinet. Supporters saw him as a visionary genius, the architect of American power. Critics saw him as a dangerous centralizer, a threat to liberty. Newspapers attacked him relentlessly. Political cartoons mocked him. Opponents accused him of monarchy, corruption, treason, elitism, and betrayal of the revolution. Hamilton responded fiercely. He wrote essays. He leaked documents. He attacked rivals. He organized allies. He maneuvered politically. He fought ideological battles with unmatched ferocity. Hamilton was brilliant, but also combative. He believed ideas mattered, and that losing arguments could endanger the Republic. His intensity energized allies, but alienated rivals. Yet Washington trusted him deeply. Washington believed Hamilton's policies saved the nation from collapse. He supported Hamilton consistently, even when controversies erupted. But Hamilton's personal life would soon unravel. In 1791, Hamilton began an affair with Maria Reynolds, a woman who later claimed her husband was blackmailing Hamilton. To protect his reputation, Hamilton paid hush money, a decision that would haunt him. Years later, political enemies discovered the affair and accused Hamilton of financial corruption. In a disastrous decision, Hamilton published a lengthy pamphlet, later known as the Reynolds Pamphlet, confessing the affair in graphic detail to prove he had not misused public funds. The result was devastating. Though cleared of financial wrongdoing, Hamilton destroyed his own reputation. His marriage was humiliated. His family suffered. His political enemies weaponized the scandal. Public trust eroded. Hamilton's personal integrity, once admired, became a subject of ridicule and scandal. But Hamilton did not retreat. He continued writing, advising, organizing, and shaping policy, even after leaving office in 1795. Though no longer Secretary of the Treasury, Hamilton remained one of the most influential figures in the Federalist Party. He advised Washington during the Jay Treaty controversy. He influenced military planning during tensions with France. He helped shape George Washington's farewell address, including its warnings against political parties and foreign entanglements. Hamilton's pen never rested, but his political influence faced growing threats. In 1796, John Adams became president, but relations between Adams and Hamilton deteriorated. Though both were Federalists, Adams resented Hamilton's dominance within the party. Hamilton criticized Adams privately and publicly, deepening factional divisions. When tensions with France escalated into the so-called Quasi-War, Hamilton advocated strong military preparations. Washington appointed him senior officer of a provisional army, but Adams, wary of Hamilton's ambition, resisted giving him full authority. Hamilton's critics accused him of seeking war to expand power. Though conflict with France remained limited, political tensions intensified. By 1800, the Federalist Party was deeply divided. Hamilton, believing John Adams unfit for leadership, attempted to undermine his re-election by circulating a private letter criticizing Adams's character and judgment. The letter was leaked, damaging Adams and shattering Federalist unity. The result was catastrophic. Thomas Jefferson won the presidency. Aaron Burr became vice president. The Federalists lost power. Hamilton had helped destroy his own party. But Hamilton believed Jefferson posed an existential threat to the nation. He feared Jefferson's commitment to limited government would weaken national institutions and destabilize the Republic. He feared Jefferson's sympathy for France would entangle America in dangerous conflicts. He feared Jefferson's philosophy would unravel the system Hamilton had built. Hamilton resolved to resist Jefferson's influence, even at personal cost. But fate delivered a deeper blow. In 1801, Hamilton's eldest son, Philip Hamilton, was killed in a duel defending his father's honor, shot by George Eaker, a political rival of Hamilton. Philip was only 19. The tragedy devastated Hamilton and his family. Hamilton had taught Philip the code of honor, how to duel, how to aim, how to defend reputation. And now, that code had killed his son. Hamilton was consumed by grief. He questioned the culture of honor that demanded blood over words, yet he remained trapped by it. 3 years later, fate delivered another confrontation. Aaron Burr, Jefferson's vice president, had long harbored resentment toward Hamilton. Hamilton had opposed Burr repeatedly, blocking his political ambitions, questioning his character, undermining his campaigns. When Burr ran for governor of New York in 1804, Hamilton worked vigorously against him, calling Burr unprincipled, dangerous, and unfit for leadership. Burr lost the election. Enraged, he demanded Hamilton retract remarks insulting his character. Hamilton refused to apologize for opinions he believed true. Honor culture left only one option: a duel. On July 11, 1804, Alexander Hamilton met Aaron Burr at Weehawken, New Jersey, the same site where his son had died 3 years earlier. Hamilton reportedly resolved not to fire directly at Burr, believing dueling immoral and sinful, yet also unwilling to refuse the challenge. What happened next remains debated. Some accounts suggest Hamilton fired his pistol into the air, intentionally missing. Others suggest his shot went wide unintentionally. Burr's bullet struck Hamilton in the abdomen, piercing his liver, spine, and internal organs. Hamilton fell. He was carried across the Hudson River to New York City to a friend's home, where he endured excruciating pain for over 30 hours. On July 12, 1804, Alexander Hamilton died. He was 47 years old. The nation was stunned. Public outrage erupted. Dueling, already controversial, became widely condemned. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving deep into the life of one of America's most fascinating and controversial founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton. You might know him from the $10 bill or maybe from a certain hit Broadway musical. But the real story of Hamilton is even more dramatic and impactful than you can imagine. Born in the Caribbean and rising from obscurity, Hamilton's ambition was legendary. He was a brilliant military aide to George Washington during the Revolutionary War, a key author of the Federalist Papers, and the very first Secretary of the Treasury. But what truly sets him apart is his vision for America. While many founders envisioned a quiet, agrarian republic, Hamilton dreamed of a bustling industrial powerhouse, a nation that could compete on the world stage. This vision wasn't just a dream. He built the framework to make it a reality. As Treasury Secretary, Hamilton faced a nation drowning in debt from the war. His solution was bold and controversial. The federal government would assume all state debts. This wasn't just about paying bills. It was a strategic move to bind the states together and establish the financial credibility of the new United States. Imagine trying to get a loan today with a terrible credit score. That's what America was facing. Hamilton's plan was like a massive credit repair program for the entire country. It was a high-stakes gamble that ultimately paid off, laying the groundwork for a stable American economy. Then there was his proposal for a national bank, the Bank of the United States. This was a radical idea for its time. Opponents, like Thomas Jefferson, argued it was unconstitutional and would give too much power to the federal government and wealthy elites in the North. This debate sparked one of the earliest and most fundamental political divides in American history. The Federalists, led by Hamilton, who favored a strong central government, and the Democratic Republicans, led by Jefferson, who championed states' rights. It's a debate that, in many ways, continues to shape American politics today. Hamilton's argument for implied powers in the Constitution, the idea that the government could do what was necessary and proper to carry out its duties, was a game-changer. It expanded the scope of federal authority and allowed the government to adapt to future challenges. Hamilton's influence didn't stop with finance. His report on manufactures was a blueprint for America's industrial future. He advocated for tariffs and government support to protect and encourage American industries. He saw a future powered not just by farms, but by factories, innovation, and commerce. He was essentially sketching out the economic DNA of the modern American superpower. While many of his specific manufacturing proposals weren't immediately adopted, the underlying philosophy guided American economic policy for generations. He was a futurist, looking centuries ahead when his peers were often focused on the present. Of course, Hamilton's life wasn't all policy and politics. It was filled with personal drama, intense rivalries, and scandal. His affair with Maria Reynolds led to one of the first major political sex scandals in American history, which he addressed with a shockingly candid public pamphlet. He was a man of immense intellect, but also of deep insecurities and a fiery temperament. His pen was his greatest weapon, and he used it relentlessly to defend his ideas and attack his opponents in the fiercely partisan newspapers of the day. This brings us to his most famous rivalry with Aaron Burr. Their relationship was a long, slow burn of personal and political animosity. It started with professional competition in New York law and politics and escalated over the years. Hamilton actively worked to thwart Burr's political ambitions, most notably in the presidential election of 1800 and the New York gubernatorial race of 1804. He considered Burr a man without principles, a dangerous opportunist. The final straw was a published letter in which Hamilton was said to have expressed a despicable opinion of Burr. Burr demanded a retraction. Hamilton refused, and the code of honor led them to the dueling grounds in Weehawken, New Jersey. The duel on July 11, 1804, tragically cut short Hamilton's life at just 49 years old. It was a devastating loss for the young nation, but Hamilton's legacy was already cemented. He had built the financial architecture of the United States. He had championed a strong federal government. He had envisioned an industrial future that would become a reality. Think about the world we live in today: a powerful central banking system, a global economic leader, a dynamic industrial and technological society. So much of that can be traced back to the audacious vision of the immigrant from the Caribbean who wrote his way into history. So, was he a hero or a villain? An elitist who favored the rich, or a visionary patriot who secured the nation's future? The truth is, he was complicated, just like the nation he helped build. His story is a powerful reminder that history is rarely black and white. Alexander Hamilton was a flawed, brilliant, and indispensable founder whose impact is still felt every single day. His legacy isn't just in the history books. It's in the very foundation of the modern American experiment. What do you think is Hamilton's most important contribution? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.